to the second Housing Committee on this this very dark and drizzly evening. Can I welcome all our members here and officers this evening, and all those of you at home who are watching. Can I remind all members and attendees to turn off your cameras and microphones unless you're asked to speak. And for those people who are watching the webcast at home, I would inform you that if you look above the video, you will see a resources tab. If you select that and then click the link to the agenda will appear. Sorry, if you click the link to the agenda will appear on the right hand side, and that will allow you to open that agenda microphones in PDF format and follow the discussion and debate. If I can ask if we've had any apologies. I know we've got Mike Sullivan and we've got Councillor Moira McLaughlin that's standing in for Mike this evening. Do we have any other apologies? No? Okay, thank you. Matthew, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes, Chair. I will read out the names of councillors in alphabetical order, and if members can put the camera on first and then indicate that they are present. So Cllr Jo Bird.
Good evening.
Councillor Allan Brame.
Good evening, I'm present, thank you.
Councillor George Davies.
Councillor George Davies, present.
Councillor Paul Hayes.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Jenny Johnson.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Ian Lewis.
Cllr Ian Lewis, present, thank you.
Councillor Moira McLaughlin.
Councillor Moira McLaughlin, present, thank you.
Councillor Julie McManus.
Julie McManus, present, thank you.
Councillor Jean Robinson.
Councillor Jean Robinson, present, thank you.
And Councillor Stuart Whittingham.
Present, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Matthew. Members' Code of Conduct and Declarations of Interest. Members are asked to consider whether they have any disclosable pecuniary interests and any other relevant interest in connection with the items on this agenda, and if so, you to declare them and state the nature of your interest. Okay, I'll assume that we don't have any. The minutes, sorry, phone ringing. The minutes from our last meeting, I'm assuming everybody's had time to read them, and if there's, can we just agree that they're okay?
Agreed.
Okay, agreed. I'll take that, thank you. And public and member questions. So do we have any public questions? I'm not aware of any.
We do not.
Okay, thank you, Bryn. Do we have any statements and petitions?
No, nothing's been submitted.
Okay, thank you, Bryn. Okay, we're moving on to item number 6, which is the Northbank Housing Infrastructure Fund. And I'm going to ask one of our officers, Sally Shah, to take us through that, please, Sally. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We wanted to come to members this evening to report back on the progress that is being made at Wirral Waters on the residential development at Northbank, and this progress is really underpinned by the Housing Infrastructure Fund award, which has enabled the development to proceed. The other item that I wanted to update on was the new strategic housing infrastructure funding that the government has announced. So just to provide, I'll take you through the report and to start with a bit of background information. Members will know that Wirral Waters is one of the largest regeneration projects in the UK, and that housing is a key feature of the development, with outline planning permission being in place for up to 13,500 units over the next 25 years. Wirral Waters is also one of a number of regeneration areas that has been identified in the emerging Birkenhead regeneration framework, which will provide an overall strategy for the regeneration of that wider Birkenhead area. And it will also form a key component of the emerging Wirral local plan evidence base. So just to sort of go back a little further in respect of the Housing Infrastructure Fund, it was back in November 2017 that Wirral Council submitted a bid to central government for just over 6 million specifically to the Housing Infrastructure Fund, known as HIF, to support housing development in Wirral waters. The reason that we submitted that bid on behalf for Wirral Waters was that it was actually the only scheme within Wirral at the time that met that HIF programme criteria. The process was very competitive, it was very oversubscribed, but following a lengthy due diligence process undertaken by Homes England, Wirral Council was formally notified that the bid had been approved by Homes England in February 2019. And we then took a report to Cabinet, who agreed to accept the grant on the 25th of March 2019. And just to note, it was in fact the only scheme in the Liverpool City region that actually secured support at that time. The grant from the Housing Infrastructure Fund is to enable the delivery of a package of infrastructure works that includes land remediation and public realm works. And these works are necessary in order to sort of get the conditions right to bring forward some 1,106 residential homes and to these homes were on that site. And the homes are made up of three specific sort of developments, one being the Urban Splash Peel development, another being the Belong Care Village, and the third being the Wirral Waters 1, often known as Legacy project. And through the delivery of this really quite significant first phase of development, we will be bringing forward a new community in Wirral Waters at Northbank, developing a new housing market, and we see this as unlocking further residential and commercial development in Wirral Waters, all of which will be taking place on brownfield land. The report sets out further detail on the three schemes, and I'll just run through those in sort of brief. The first one being Wirral Waters 1, say the Legacy development, and that will bring forward 500 one and two bedroom apartments, and within that there will be 20% affordable units. And this is being brought forward and delivered through a joint venture between Peel Land and Property and Wirral Council. And we expect to be on site with the start date for construction in early 2021, and we estimate that completion will be take place at the end of 2023. The second scheme is that of a joint venture between Urban Splash and Peel, and this development will deliver 347 modular homes, and construction is due to commence again early in 2021 and bringing forth the first 30 modern family they're likely to be sort of townhouses over 2 or 3 stories, and these will be available for sale. These homes are designed to be flexible because they are created through modern methods of construction, and this method in itself means that they will be built to a high sustainability standard with high quality materials and construction techniques. The third development is that of Belong Village, and Belong is an organisation that provides dementia care and accommodation for people, and this particular unit will provide accommodation for over 100 residents, and they will have access to 24-hour care and nursing support if necessary in extended family-sized households, but the development will also offer independent living apartments. And I think one of the key features of the development is, or the way in which Belong works, is that it is not a closed community. It's very much, they want to be open to the general public, so there will be facilities, potentially a cafe, that will encourage people to come and use the facility, and so that it's very much part of the community. So that's the developments. since the grant's been in place, work has progressed and the land has now been remediated. So you will have seen potentially the diggers on site. That has now been completed despite, say, the challenges presented by COVID and the national lockdown. So what's happening now is that a contractor has been appointed to undertake the public realm works to create there'll be public spaces, 2 public squares, there'll be walkways along the dock side, and although there's been a short delay because of COVID, that's back on track now, and it's anticipated that the work will start in January 2021. The report identifies that that we've had some discussions with Homes England around the grant. Since the report was written, that has now been resolved and the conditions met, and we're moving forward with the grant. In terms of so that really, I suppose, sums up where we are in terms of what is a very exciting opportunity in terms of the bringing forward of the residential community at Wirral Waters. The report also then looks a little to the future and identifies that we do have opportunities now because of the government's announcement surrounding the Strategic Housing Infrastructure Fund, and that we are, although the details of the funding haven't been announced as yet, we are aware that the funding is coming, and therefore we've been working very hard within Wirral to make sure that we've got in a position where we're well placed to bid for any funding that comes through either Homes England or the Combined Authority at the city region level. So that's very much sort of taking you through the report, and sort of brings to the recommendations in the report, which is that we're really asking you to note the progress to date in delivering the fund and the activity that's, I say, is already happening at Wirral Waters Northbank site. And that we're also asking you to note the opportunities that we expect to be there under the Strategic Housing Infrastructure Grant, as we've set, and the actions that we're taking to make sure that we're in a good position to secure funding when the details are announced. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sally. Do I have any questions from members? I think I saw Alan Brame's hand up. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Chair. There are just, first of all, I'd like to say it's great to see progress actually being made on this project, which has been so long in gestation. And thank you very much for that very full report, Sally. I've just got a few small points of clarification on different aspects of the report. If I could ask you to turn first to paragraph 3.8, and this is the one talking about discussions that are going on with Homes England to satisfy the conditions to allow the drawdown of tranche 2. Perhaps you just give us a little more information about the nature of those discussions, and so we can make sure that that second element of funding is released. And then in 3.9, when we talk about the Housing Infrastructure Fund programme, that's allowed the LCR partners to prepare bidding on key strategic sites. We're told that this programme is increasingly fluid, so obviously there's a lot of uncertainty about it at the moment. But I just wonder if we need to temper our optimism on this, because in the first round of funding, Wirral Waters was the only site in the Liverpool City region that was successful, and no doubt other boroughs will be looking to bring forward their own projects, and we'll be competing against them. You might have a comment on that one. And then on 7.1, it talks about a delivery group that's in place to ensure oversight and progress. I wonder if you could just tell us a bit about the constitution of that delivery group. And then finally, it's just paragraph 8.1 about the consultation on the planning application for Wirral Waters 1. As I understood it, we already had planning approval in place for the development. Perhaps you just clarify those points. Thank you.
Certainly, Councillor. Chair, are you happy for me to respond?
Yes, please, Sally.
If I just take one in each, Councillor Brame, in turn. So starting with 3.8, the item refers to the paragraph refers to some issues that were caused over the change in milestones that were a result of the delays that came forward because of COVID. So what we've had to do is go back to Homes England and renegotiate the grant funding agreement to make sure that it's in line with the changed circumstances. That, to be honest, has happened across the country with a number of the schemes. There is Homes England have had to do this on probably the majority, I think, of the funding that they've allocated because of the delays caused by COVID. So that's now in place. So we are now able to move forward with the drawdown of the further funding. Moving on to 3.9 and the concern that, as you say, we don't have the details of the funding as yet, but we do need to make sure that we're as well prepared as we possibly can be. And we are in a better place than we were a few years ago, because we have done a lot of work in terms of really, I suppose, on the back of some of the studies that we've done for the local plan, but also the development of the Birkenhead Regeneration Framework, which has identified more sites within that area. And we've opened and having sort of very, I suppose, clear and strong discussions with the combined authority. So they do recognise, and also with Homes England, so they do, both organisations recognise the opportunities that we have in Wirral in order to bring forward sites. So whilst, yes, clearly the fund will be attract applications from across the city region, we are in a very good place, and probably a better place than we were last time round when the fund opened. In terms of your point about the risk and the reference to the delivery group, that's an officer group that is drawn from members from across the departments. It's in place in order to make sure that we have oversight of the scheme as it progresses, and that it meets to have reports back on progress. And should there be any issues, that it's possible then to escalate the issues from that delivery group through to what we now have in place in terms of governance. It's an officer regeneration and place board in order to make sure that issues are appropriately dealt with should they need escalating if there were concerns. So that's how that delivery group sits in our governance structure. Yes, in terms of 8.1, apologies, it is a little, I can see that it's a little ambiguous in the sense that the planning application certainly is in place, and I think it's written because I've written it in that way because the report is an update on the cabinet report that went back in 2019, and clearly we were saying at that time as well that the planning application was in place. So yes, just to reassure you that that's definitely the case.
Thank you very much. That's most helpful, Sally.
Okay, thank you, Sally. I have Stuart Whittingham next, please. Stuart.
Okay, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Sally, for presenting this report. It's really great to see such a positive report, especially given the current environment we're all living through. Very proud to have played a small part in pulling us all this together. And I just want to pay tribute to all the work, both from an officer level, and obviously George, an officer level, and politicians in terms of working with the Combined Authority, Homes England, Peel, Urban Splash, and all the other stakeholders to make this a reality. And it's nice to see spades in the ground. So in terms of my question, obviously, I've had concerns in the past about transport links. There is currently no bus service that runs down Dock Road, which will run past all three developments and also the flour mills. I'm just wondering where we're up to in terms of ensuring public transport provision there before any properties are occupied. Thanks very much.
Chair, are you happy for me to respond?
Sorry, yes, please,
yes.
Sally. If you just respond to the questions, you don't need to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Whittingham, yes, and that is obviously a great concern, because we need these apartments to be accessible, and we need to be able to make sure that people can reach them, whether it's to sort of for work, or whether it's for pleasure. We need to make sure that's the case. We've therefore are working at the moment. We have a transport study in place, and we've been working with colleagues at the Combined Authority, but we've also closely with Peel to bring forward a mass transit study. So we that is in train now. But one of the requirements of that study is that we are at a point where that we can make sure that the first phase of the proposals that come forward through that study around a mass transit system can be implemented in time for the first apartment being opened. So we have separated this into phases, and we're very clear that that is the driver of that work, to make sure that that will be served by the mass transit system that we hope to put in place across a much wider geography within Wirral Waters. But that first phase, whatever the particular mode might be, but that is in place by the time the first apartments open at Northbank.
Okay, thank you, Sally. I have a question from Jenny Johnson, and then followed by George Davies. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sally, for a very comprehensive report and overview. That was really helpful and interesting. On 7.0 risks, there are a couple of concerns I've got. One of them being the sale of the units, so the commercial opportunity of actually selling or not selling those units, and the impact if the sales are not to plan. And linked to that really is the third-party relationships being a really key component of this working as well. So what you're doing to mitigate any risks, if you like, associated with that third-party relationship. But I welcome that 6 million funding, and obviously it's incredibly strong, the fact that you've won that, and it's, the team has got to be commended for winning that money. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor. In terms of, yes, that certainly is a risk, and we certainly, in terms of the current situation, making changes to the way people live, we certainly need to. We've been taking that on board. I think one of the things I would say is that one of the very big positives of having Urban Splash on board is that Urban Splash has a particular reputation, and it has a particular attraction, and they are bringing forward a product that is very popular in other parts of the country. They're also bringing forward a project that is particularly sustainable. They've gone into partnership with a Japanese company called Sakeshi, and to be honest, it's one of the most sustainable house builders that there is in the world, and therefore they come with credentials that in our sort of our times of climate change and of the need for development to be as net carbon zero as possible, they come with strong credentials which are popular, obviously, and will attract people who want to live in that way. I think evidence of it, however, is that we have yet to begin to even market these houses, and already they have received a substantial number of inquiries, far more than the number of properties that are coming forward in this first phase. So the demand is clearly being demonstrated. But it's not enough. Obviously, we can't just rely on that. We do need to make sure that as we move forward, that we're understanding the market, that we're working with Urban Splash, with Peel, to make sure that the way in which these properties are marketed are not only that they're hitting the mark for the market that we're entering, but also that they obviously are affordable as well, because we are creating a new community here, and we need to make sure that we understand that product will sell, and people will be able to afford to move into the area.
Thank you, Sally. Could I have a follow-up, please, Chair?
Because I have got two more people with the hands up, Jenny.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up though to that. I suppose my concern is that we don't have large mass purchase from commercial entities, if you like, for a buy-to-let, as often happens, say, in London, where you've got now lots of vacant properties. So you might sell them, but the next thing is we want to create a community. We don't want a grouping of vacant properties. So again, what can you do to encourage local people to buy them as opposed to large entities buy-to-let? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
No. Councillor Johnson, completely understand that it is all about that creation of a community and the making it an attractive part of where people want to live, and that's where I suppose the links through to colleagues in terms of the making sure that it is those local people understand that this is an opportunity for them, and making sure that we have in place processes to ensure that it is individual people that come forward to purchase these, that's going to be so important. And most definitely we will take that on board and make sure that that's we work through that as the scheme develops.
Okay, thank you for that, Sally. That was a good question, Jenny. I have George Davies and then Jo Bird, please.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Right.
Yes.
Just want to make a few quick comments, and I don't want to repeat things, in particular what Stuart mentioned before. But Allan, when he asked his question, was saying about having the spades in the ground and everything else. But you know, I think we've got to be honest and open and say that, you know, when we do regeneration of this magnitude we're talking about, 15 years is nothing, and I think that's where we started from. So for the first 10 years of this, I was actually the cabinet member. I'm working through, followed on by Stuart, and now followed on by Julie, and where we all are, and we want to see that the whole thing developed. What I want to make certain is, and Stuart made a very, very valid point about the when you start talking about transport and everything else, the infrastructure to this, Sally, and I know I've had many a conversation with you about it as well, is vitally important. Jenny just made a point about people coming and being speculative and buying and selling and everything else. Happened in Liverpool, and we'll expect it to happen quite a bit here as well. Is a massive thing we're doing. So the whole thing comes down to, have we looked at if this is going to take off, and it's going to be, you know, as we call it, spades in the ground, and then the first 500 units are going to be ready by 2023. Have we thought about, just a little bit further, schooling for the children who come to live in that area? Because if I look at the schools that's around at the present moment in time, most of them are full. And I think to myself, well, where are we going to put these children? Where are they all going to go? Are we thinking ahead and saying to ourselves, well, if you're talking 12,000 homes over a period of time, then that actually will bring a lot of people to move into that part of the area, won't it? So just concerned about schools and being at school, Stuart's transport, and the infrastructure in general, the whole thing coming. I know you're doing a lot of work on it, but just at the present moment in time, I'd like to see some movement that says, yes, we're prepared, we're ready, and come 2023, we'll have all the facilities that are ready to move forward. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I think I would like to just say to you, absolutely, and it is obviously without the appropriate infrastructure that these we won't be making a successful community, and schools are very much at the heart of that. In terms of the work that we're doing around infrastructure, this is all part of the local plan and part of the work that we've been doing within the Birkenhead Regeneration Framework as well, because clearly it's not just in terms of our ambitions, it's not just that these housing sites at Northbank, as you've suggested, it's actually those sites, we're going to be developing sites around further afield in terms of the Birkenhead area as well. So we do need to look at this in the round, and that's why we are very very much looking at, we have developing an infrastructure plan, which we will be able to bring back to committee. But that schooling and education is very much at the heart of that infrastructure plan, as will be there's other issues such as making sure that we've got digital connectivity and the digital requirement that we'll need in this development alongside the transport infrastructure.
Thanks very much indeed, Sally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, and Sally, and your question, George. Jo Bird has a hand up, please, Jo.
Thanks very much. My questions are around community wealth building and genuinely affordable housing that's created as a result of this scheme, and it's welcome, as others have said, around the £6 million public subsidy towards this. So how many people do you expect to be taken off of the housing waiting list as a result, and how are we going to maximise the social benefits of the construction phase also?
Thank you, Councillor Bird. In terms of the legacy development, that is at the time of the requirement of the development, when we agreed the scheme, there was a requirement for 10%. That was the requirement that we had for the site. We have 20% affordable homes being delivered through this programme on legacy. I appreciate that affordable homes is not the same as social homes, and that therefore that we are talking about affordability here. But I think we've made a good start with that process. In terms of the importance of making sure that we deliver social value through the construction and community wealth building, we are, as part of some work that we've just commissioned through Cllr's, the Centre for Local Economic Studies, we are looking at all of our major regeneration programmes, our physical programmes, to look at how we can, to revisit them. How can we make sure that we're maximising that community wealth opportunities through that programme? And that's certainly something that we will be bringing back through committee. But value and social value, in terms of the development, they will be expected to deliver social value in line with our social value policies.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sally. I was keen to learn about the sustainability and the environmental credentials of the modular homes, but that's already been asked, and you've answered that in quite a bit of detail, so thank you for that. If we've no more questions from members, and I can't see any hands up, then I would ask that we note the progress to date in delivering the Housing Infrastructure Fund funded activity on the Wirral Waters Northbank site in order to bring forward the agreed number of homes, and also note the opportunities for future Strategic Housing Infrastructure Grant, the SHIF, and set out the actions being taken to secure this funding in support of the wider housing delivery targets. So thank you very much for that. Now, I believe we might need a seconder for that, so if anybody is happy to second that for me, please.
I'll second that, Julie.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, I think we've got some background noise.
I think it's the police helicopter actually overhead here.
Oh gosh. Okay, thank you. Okay, we will. Are we agreeing that? Do we have anybody that disagrees with either myself or Alan, or by assent are we happy to note?
Agree.
Okay, thank you, Moira. Okay, well that brings us to a neat close at 7 o'clock before we move into our work programme. I'm going to suggest, but I don't, just a quick comfort break, and if anybody wants to top up their teacups, we're due to restart at 7 o'clock, but I'm happy to meet back at past, if everybody is happy to do that. So we did. Okay. Is everybody happy for that?
Sorry, Chair. It's
Fine,
sorry.
thank you.
We still need to just note the work programme update as well.
Okay. All right then. Okay, sorry about that. We'll go on to the, missed that. Go on to the work programme update then, please. I'm going to invite Alan Evans to present the report. Thank you, Alan.
Sorry, it's Bryn again. I'm going to introduce it, and if Alan wants to expand on it, then he'll step in.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it's basically, we're just asking councillors to comment and note the proposed Housing Committee work programme for the remainder of this year, and it's shown in Appendix 1 of the report. What we have listed is we have two key decisions which will be coming up towards the end of the year. One is the housing growth strategy delivering for Wirral, and the other is central government housing infrastructure funding. And then we have a number of items that were raised through conversations with the committee themselves, and will either be delivered as reports or will be agreed to be given as information items in future. The dates on there at the moment are kind of slightly up in the air, but the assumption is that they will be heard before the next committee cycle. Okay.
Sorry, I was on mute again. Okay, thank you, Bryn. Do we have any questions at all? No. Okay, well, I think we will break then now before we move on to the second part of our meeting. Can I suggest, it's bang on 7 o'clock now, if we meet at, I'm being told we need a proposer and a seconder, so I'm going to propose. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Yes.
Thank you, George. Okay, and we will get to that break for a cup of tea and a comfort break. I'd suggest that we do that when we meet again at 7:05, if that's okay with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.